Let's begin that process of crafting a meaningful life.
Here's Mary Crafts.
Welcome back to Crafting a Meaningful Life. I love to be on this and just craft my life. And I love that you are crafting yours and that you're watching constantly to see what nuggets of wisdom might there be that help me craft more the life of what I want. And I decided this morning as I was thinking about coming on with you that it was really less about being delighted to be with you as it is about being honored to be with you. I feel such an honor when I know that people have taken 30, 40 minutes of their time and given it here. One, because I'm honored that there's a trust here between you and me. But next of all, I'm honored that I get to be involved in your journey, in your quest, in your path to becoming the best version of yourself. And I'm just honored to be involved with that. So sometimes the things we talk about on this show are places and things and thought processes that I'm never going to go there. But thanks for sharing, Mary. And other times there are those things that just ding, 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 that ring home to you as a piece, a nugget of wisdom that will help you. What I want to share with you today is one of those that I don't care what walk of life you're in. I don't care what point you are in your journey. These nuggets I want to share with you today can be life-changing. They were for me. They were the first point that I began to take a look at. Those were all learned behaviors, and I'm now at a point of choice. And what does that look like? And it's a simple, easy thing to do. So I invite you on with me to look at how the value of this podcast can really turn the trajectory of your life. And we're simply going to talk today about our vocabulary. That's it, the words we use. Because the one thing I've learned since I was about, maybe age 30, I began to be aware of this. So at 7, that's 40 years I've been aware of this. And I'm still being aware of it, but it has literally changed how I think about things, and it has changed how others think of me, what they hear when I'm talking. And because words matter. Words matter. The words we use matter not only to those who are listening to us, but they matter to us. When I hear myself using certain words, a certain thought pattern happens in my brain, and my actions go one way or another, depending on how I have phrased something, because words are so powerful. And sometimes when you start using different words in your vocabulary, the shift is instantaneous. When you know you're not using that word in your life again, and you feel an instant shift in accountability, in being understood. Sometimes as we shift our words, it's a much longer process, and it takes over time to see the results. And you might ask, why is this possibly important? The words I use, they're just my words. If you don't like them, don't listen, okay? Well, that would be one attitude, but you can't unlisten to yourself. And so I'm not only talking about how you're perceived by others, but what you hear your thought process is. And you're either going to stay using words that keep you living in victimville, or you're going to start using words that move you to accountability. And you might ask, how can words just do that? I thought it's the thought process. Well, let me tell you, it starts with words. You start using accountable words, and you'll start feeling accountable and not victimized. There's a shift when you start using words that matter. There's a shift from outside, someone putting something on you of what you ought to be doing. There's a shift to what you want to do and what are your choices. You suddenly are given a plate to choose from. Do you want plate A or plate B? And you get to choose. When you're served only one plate, that was brought down to you probably by your parents, your relationships, your community of shoulds, then there's no choice. So let's talk about what some of those are. It helps me with my self-talk when I am aware of my words. It helps me when I'm wanting others to listen to me and I want to be received by them. The moment I start shooting all over them, the walls go up. But the moment I open my communication with my words to what I want and what is possible, then the walls go down and the doors open. It allows me more to be of help to others as I help them see where these words are leading them. So let's talk about the actual words and what are some examples of this. Because I'm up to this point, you're like listening up here in the brain, cerebral cortex. Now I want you to start listening of the shift that happens in your heart and in your cerebral cortex as you think through what it feels like to choose words that are accountable as opposed to fight or flight words that come from the base of our brain. That fight or flight part that does not want to be accountable and just is always in rote memory of what we were told, usually before age 7. Isn't that crazy that so much of our life is determined by what was happening at that little tiny piece of our life? Well, that's just the way it is. Brain science has come so far and has shown us that. And we can actually begin to move the reaction from here to here if you begin to use just words that help you move that thought process. So let's talk about, for example, one of my biggest pet peeves is when people use the phrase, you make me, whatever it is. You make me so mad. You make me angry. You make my life so hard. You make, so much problems in this family. If that woman didn't do that, she makes me so angry at work when she does that. Whoa, that for me is like one of the biggest trigger points for me. And I have to back it up. I'm like, okay, I know that I don't make her those ways. I know that that person doesn't make me that way. And as I can model to them behavior. So how many times have you used that phrase? You make me. You make me. That is one of the most unaccountable phrases in this human language that we use. And we hear it from our parents. We use it as parents. We use it in our work. But really, is it that you make me? Or, you come home and you're like, he made me blah, blah. Or this guy on the freeway, he made me blah, blah, blah. Wow. Do you not have any choice in this? Can you see how by using the phrase, he or you made me, where do you get to choose? Where in that is your choice? Could it be there was this guy on the freeway and he was really upset with me, but I chose to move away from him on the freeway and I chose something differently. And no anger needed to come. Your child might do something. You told them to be home at a certain time and to get their chores done. And when you came home from work, the child wasn't home and their chores weren't done. And so when they did arrive home, you started in with this slamming of, you make me so mad, blah. Could you just do this instead? Could you say things like, when this happens, I feel da 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 da. That's owning your feelings and getting you to recognize that you have a choice. So when your child arrives home, they're late, their chores aren't done. Rather than saying, you make me, you could say this. When you arrive home and your chores aren't done that I've asked you to do, I feel angry. So that's whether or not angry is the right choice. You own that you're feeling that when this happens. It takes it off of them that they've made you feel some way and puts it right smack in the middle of your lap that that's what you're choosing. You saw the guy on the freeway? He's choosing to act that way. I'm choosing something different. It brings to our mind that people can choose their reactions, and people react differently. You have the same given situation, but two people will react absolutely different to it. I remember early in my life, well, not early, somewhere in my 30s, I belonged to a women's organization that I was leading that particular time. And one woman came up to me following a meeting and said to me, "This is the friendliest group of people. I feel so welcome here. And I just wanted to thank you so much." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, thanks. You're welcome. Oh, yeah." At the same meeting with the same group of people, I had another woman come up to me and say, "This is the most stuck-up group of people. No one reached out. No one did this. It made me so angry to be here. I'm never coming back again." Now, the same meeting, the same people, two diametrically opposed thought processes. What was the difference? It didn't seem to me the circumstances were the difference. The people were the difference. One lived from a point of accountability. And when she walked into that room, she walked up to people. She said hello. She sat in the second from the front row and engaged with people, looked around, talked to people. The other woman sat in the last row, talked to no one, looked down, never looked up. And they had two completely different experiences. So you can have the exact same thing and two different choices. Where does that put accountability? Right smack here in your lap, where I would like it to be. Or in reality, where you would like it to be, because then you get to choose. Nobody made you one way or the other. As mothers, I used this too much when my children were growing up. But by the time I was 30, I began to shift out of that. And I began to take accountability for what I was feeling rather than blaming it on someone else. The word choice matters. I began to hear it differently in my brain. I began to see that I could choose my emotion. And if I didn't want to choose being mad, I didn't. I could choose being frustrated instead. I could choose being disappointed. I could choose being sad. I could choose anything. I did not have to say, "You make me mad when you blah, blah." We get to choose. It's one of the greatest gifts that we have on this planet, is that we get to choose. So think of an alternative next time you find those words coming out of your mouth. "You make me blah." When this happens, I feel. How does that feel? Feels accountable, does not feel blaming, does not feel shaming, feels aware that I can make a choice. Words matter. They shift you. They shift others. Another one of my pet peeves is the word should. When I hear people saying it to other people, "You should do this. You should do that." When I'm saying it to myself, "I should do this. I should do that." Should is one of the worst words in our human language, I think, because should involves an outside force saying to you, "This is what society expects of you, and you should behave." There's no choice in it there for me. There's just I should. And it's usually from an outside influence. It's programming that has been put into us since we were little. My parents said this a lot. You should, you should, you should. You ought to, you ought to. There was this sense of almost shaming me, that if I wasn't doing it their way or one way, that I should be. Well, what about my way? Can I choose that? Yes, you can. You can choose what they have suggested, But when the word should is used, there's this sense of blame and shame. And if I could go back and shift one thing out of my vocabulary that's been there my entire life, it's anything that has involved where I've shamed someone or blamed someone. It did not lead to accountability. Yeah. What about if you just simply changed the word to could? What if you said to people, well, you could do this, you could do that? Instead of you should do this, you should do that, you could do this. Or instead of to myself saying, I should get to the gym tomorrow. That keeps it all out here, and the chances of my going are very small. But if I internalize it and say, I could go to the gym tomorrow and I could feel better about my physical health and wellness. I could feel better about my energy level. But when I put should in there, I reduce the chances of my going drastically. I could. Allows you to have choice. It allows you to have options. You have the freedom to see an alternative. I could choose to go to the gym, or I could choose to stay home and watch the news. Now, when you put it like that, well, it depends on what the news is, but chances are going to the gym is going to be way more beneficial to me. But I get to choose. When should comes out of my mouth, I know automatically that it's time to stop and reflect. I just said should to myself. I should do this. Is that going to motivate me? Or what if I said, I could do this? Suddenly there's inspiration and vision with I could. Just one of those words I've eliminated. It also matters the words that we use to others, particularly to others. I remember growing up that with a mom that never felt she was enough. I was never enough. And she would say to me so many times, what's the matter with you? Or what were you thinking? Or how could you? Those words are meant to shame. They're meant to bring things into compliance. They're meant to give back control to the person who's trying to exert influence over you. I have to say that in the early part of my company and my business, I unfortunately used those words on my employees a lot. I'd see something that they had done and I'd be like, what were you thinking? That was my favorite one. What were you thinking? What's that phrase meant to do? It's meant to shame them. It totally is. Or blame them. What were you thinking? Clearly not what I was thinking. Who knows everything? Okay. And when I stopped using that phrase, what were you thinking? Then suddenly my whole life, my whole crew, my whole company shifted. It's a matter of words, and words matter. Could I just express my thoughts without the shame? Whoa, that's an unfortunate situation. Normally, I would be really mad at that, but I'd rather talk to you and say, what were your thought processes when you chose to do that? And is there something we can do so in the future that you might choose something differently? And we just had this conversation back and forth rather than my one-upmanship of, how could you do that? What were you thinking? Shame and blame. I want that out of my language. I want that out of my thought process. I want that out of how others feel about themselves. Another phrase that I've tried to eliminate from my life, and I hear it so much from others, and I try, what I'm going to say, I can't use that. Okay, see how I'm still correcting? I'm still looking at how those things influence myself and others. So one of the phrases I think is tough for us when we say, I will try. I'm kind of a fan of Yoda who says, there is no try, there is only do. Okay, I'm a fan of that guy because if you continually say it to yourself as you've set up goals for yourself, I will try, I will try, I will try. It gives you the place for failure, to step out, to not be accountable, to not choose. Well, I tried. What if every single thing you put forth in your life was, I am doing this? I keep coming back so much to the physical, to my weight loss journey. But that's one thing that I know, so I share from that point. And, all the failures I had on dieting came from, I would say, well, I'm going to try this. I set myself up for failure before I even stepped one foot into the plan, okay? What if I said, I am doing this. I am doing this. Try and take the word try out of your language. Do you see how I just used the word try? So I'm going to rephrase that. One of the most powerful things you can do is to take the word try out of your language and instead put in it do. Better yet, am. Rather than talking about what you do, talking about who you are. So rather than, I'm doing an exercise program. How about this? I am health and wellness. I am. So much more powerful than I'm going to try and do health or wellness. Let's get rid of the word try. See what happens to you mentally and emotionally, physically, and how others view you. They know now. You're done trying. You're going to be about this. And their support of you also shifts. They're not waiting for you to fail. They're watching how you succeed. What if we shifted every phrase that came out of our mouth to one of these accountable phrases? What would shift? For example, rather than saying, I have to get up in the morning and I have this and I have this and I have this and those are all the things I have to do. What if you shifted just the word have to what? I say this a lot, get to, okay? Not what I have to do, but what I get to do. That changes my mindset about what's going on in my day and how full my day is. People say to me, Mary, I don't know how you do it all. Well, if I had to do it, it would make a big difference, but I get to do it. And I'm so excited about all the things I get to do. By changing that word have to get to, let me tell you how it feels inside. When I think of that I have to do so many things, I think of my shoulders being just like literally pressed down, heavy. I'm carrying these big weights like I'm doing in the gym, what we call a farmer's walk, where you hold 25 pounds in each hand, kettlebells, and you just walk around the gym and you get walking, and your shoulders begin to get so heavy, and you have to do this. You have to complete. You have to. And what about you had the same kettlebells, but suddenly you stood up and said, I get to do this. I get to walk with these 25-pound kettlebells in each hand, and I get to walk and build strength. I get to be all that I am. Suddenly, your ability to carry those weights is completely different. Your strength did not change, but your attitude changed immensely. I think that there's always benefit when we separate an action from a person. It helps me when I think about that. For example, by separating an action from, so if you think about an action being a person, then we would say phrases like, you're such a bad boy, such a bad boy. Really? Is that boy bad? Or was his action bad? So to say, when you do this, that can be a bad thing. So here's the person, he's a good person. What he did was not necessarily a good thing. Had consequences to it. When you do this, there are consequences. But not that you are this action, that you are this person. They're very different. And when we speak to people, as seeing them as an individual of value and of worth. And then when they do a bad thing, you can talk about the thing being bad, but not them, because they are full of glory and light. The same thing applies when you say that to you. You're such a bad person, Mary. You always are choosing that. Such a bad person. Really? You're so weak. You're never going to get this right. When I use that kind of vocabulary on myself, can you see what that does to me? But if I say, I am a beautiful being of light, at times I've chosen this action that didn't work for me, but the beautiful being of light is going to choose a different action because I know who I am. Words matter. The words we speak to ourselves, the words we hear from ourselves, the words others hear from us, the words that they feel from us. When I've stopped telling myself that I'm a screw up, I still have actions that are screwed up. Sometimes I even have thought processes that are screwed up, but I am not screwed up. And that's what always happens just when you okay. I also hear this in phrases from people who are living in that victimville permanently. And something may have happened, like a transmission went out on their car. And they'll say, that's what always happens. Just when I was getting ahead, something happens that puts me back in the financial hole. If that's your thought process, that something always happens and puts you back in that financial hole, guess what's going to happen? You're going to always have something happening that gets you back in that financial hole. Always. Because that's your thought process and that's what you're verbally telling yourself. I hear it from people. And that's what you're putting out to other people. That's what always happens. Are you signing up for what always happened? Or are you signing up for what could happen, what the possibilities are? We set up this self-defeating behavior and we get self-defeating results. I'm sure you've read about this. It's the law of attraction. The law of attraction says you get what you focus on. You've heard, in the past 2 or 3 decades, there's been this very popular book and talk series and congealing of thoughts that's called The Secret. And I'm not opposed to The Secret. In fact, I think there's so much truth in The Secret. The Secret talks about the law of attraction, that you get what you focus on. And it says, if you want money, then focus on getting money. Okay, yes, but it's not just a matter of sitting on the sofa watching TV and be thinking about money all day long and then it's going to happen. What it says is that the law of attraction is you get what you focus on, because when you truly focus on something, your actions will follow. Your actions will mirror your thought process. And that's why I think words are so important, because your actions will mirror what your words are. And you will begin to incorporate new actions when your words are in alignment with what you want. You're at a moment of choice, to completely ignore this podcast or to take hold of it and listen to it again. Write down those words that come to you that you've been using, that have been keeping you in a box, that's been shooting all over you and making you all over you. They can be different. You're at a moment of choice. You can begin to use different words, to think different words, to say different words, or you can stay right where you are. And what you're at right now will be the best version of you that you will ever reach. Or you can change and shift and become aware of your vocabulary and how it's affecting you and how it's affecting others. I guarantee you, if you take this to heart, you will have one of the biggest shifts of your life. Words matter. Your vocabulary and how you use it matters to you. It matters to others. And it's one of the most powerful things for transforming good in your own life and the lives of others that I know. And that's today how we're going to craft our meaningful life, by crafting our vocabulary.
Listen to the full podcast today and subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and more. Crafting a Meaningful Life with Mary Crafts.